Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
How are you finding the show so far?
It's been great.
Yeah.
Obviously a great spot here in San Diego. And
Yep.
It's been wonderful meeting with other people in the space, talking with people who are kind of thinking about various aspects of how does tech and commercial real estate really kind of come together and find solutions for the owners and operators of the built environment. So it's been great to learn about all the different aspects of this pretty dynamic environment and space.
Yeah. Tell me about, for those of people watching at home right now, tell us a little bit more about Bractlet.
Yeah, sure thing. So what Bractlet does is it truly optimizes buildings for owners and managers. And so what we do is we gather incredible amounts of information from the building, either from meters that we install or building automation systems, and we use that information to create incredibly predictive real-time simulations of how the building's working. This allows them to play kind of what-if scenarios. It's kind of like a digital twin of the building. They get to say like, well, what if I do this investment or that investment to reduce operational expenses? So they get to kind of see how it's going to work before having to spend a dime on a consultant or anyone else. And so it gives the power in their hands.
How accurate is that model?
Incredibly accurate.
Okay.
It's one of our big differentiators. We can forecast into the future how that building's going to work with 98% accuracy.
Really?
Yes, and that's all the pieces of equipment, all the HVAC pieces of equipment, and so it's incredibly predictive. And so what it really is doing is it's taking all of the empirical data coming from buildings, and it's kind of creating another layer on top of that data, this simulation of the building, and that's really creating prescriptive and predictive analytics for building operators and managers to be using to kind of play those what-if scenarios, so they can really create strategies on how they're going to invest in their buildings.
What are some of the companies that are already, leveraging this power of simulation?
Mm-hmm. So for us, we're at the forefront.
Yeah.
The idea of creating this digital twin is our huge differentiator. So for us, it's unique to Bractlet.
Wow. So the companies that there will be companies adopting this. It is new to market. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for us, we've actually built a lot of our software on top of an engine that is available from the DOE. It's called Energy Plus.
Okay.
And so that's available. But what we've done is essentially built software on top of that to make it incredibly accurate and predictive out of the box when we're simulating these buildings.
The bigger the building, the bigger the campus, the bigger the facility, obviously the greater the savings, especially given that how much money a capital investment costs to do anything in a
That's
building
right.
of that size. So this, really opens up a whole new avenue for making sure that you're not making the wrong choice.
Exactly.
Have you seen, as you've worked with Bractlet, have you seen, oh wow, this could have saved millions? What are some of the, I guess you could say, virtual success stories of your company?
Sure thing. So for us, what it does, it really creates transparency between the decisions being made in the buildings and the people overseeing the value of those assets. And so for us, one example is take a large capital investment in the building, maybe a plant retrofit. They're looking at a piece of equipment like a chiller. And we actually were in this scenario where it was going to be kind of a like for like. Just replace the piece of equipment, exact same specs, good to go.
So you would think.
Right. And so what we were able to do is it's very, very efficient for us to look at a ton of different options in addition to that original option of just doing a like for like change out, all the different options that they could do to drive value and replace that equipment with vastly different paybacks, ROIs, and truly value being brought to the building with different costs. And so now, instead of just saying, hey, this is what we need, this is what we should put in the building, they have this plethora of options so that they can be more strategic in how they're investing into that project. So it creates a lot of transparency and, like I said, what if scenarios when you're thinking about these investments into buildings.
What kind of cost are we talking about here? Is this a very expensive thing? I mean, the value proposition is very, very high. Is it expensive?
Yeah, so what we do is we actually have tiers of service.
Okay.
So we have various tiers to really kind of fit any different asset in terms of where it is in its life cycle or the strategy that the ownership and management has for the building. And so we have higher end services and we have lower end services. But at the end of the day, it's all about creating that transparency and decision-making tool as people are looking to optimize and reduce their operational expenses.
Is there an advantage to having your company install the sensors? Can it work just as well if the sensors are already there, or do you fine-tune them to the software?
That's a great question. So for us, the two main sources of information are from the building automation system. So we'll connect to that and get all of that information. And then we supplement that information with our own electrical submeters. So we'll put the submeters on pieces of equipment that don't have power data coming back to the building automation system. And so for us, it's important to have both, but a very robust building automation system will require less submetering, essentially.
For companies that, whether they're ready to do this virtual twin, go all the way, or if they're just trying to make their building more intelligent and perhaps ready in the future for these types of technologies, what would you say would be some best practices?
Yeah, it's a great question. Really the first step is the more instrumented and confident you can be in the data coming back from the building, the more prime the building will be for this next level of applications. And so for us, buildings that have the most advanced building automation systems, are well instrumented, for us that's great. It's a great scenario when we walk into that situation. In situations where maybe legacy systems or not as much instrumentation within the building, that's still fine, but we deploy more of our data platform to get the data that we need to create that. So it's I always describe it as kind of four legs of a table. If one's a little wobbly, like not as good information to the BIS, we'll make the other one stronger to make sure that we can create that predictive simulation.
Shore up your informational infrastructure. There are companies out there who are hearing about these types of technologies. You, as you mentioned, are on the forefront, and they've got to figure out where their investment best spent. What would you say to someone, a CIO, a CTO, who is on the bubble thinking, that would be interesting, but boy, it's new, it's an expense. What would you say to that person who's really considering using a predictive analytic like yours?
Yeah, sure thing. So a lot of times we know that those individuals are incredibly busy, are fraught with a ton of different decisions daily, even not regarding us. And so what we do is we want to make it really easy for them to get up and on the platform with Bractlet. So we'll actually typically do a trial with them. So we'll say, pick a building, and we'll go in it and we'll show you how it all works.
Wow.
And then we have extremely high confidence that they'll move forward with us. And so we'll actually do that trial typically at very low or no cost to really prove it out in one of their buildings.
Well, you can't ask for more than that. I am really excited to see what Bractlet will bring to us in 2018. Matt Lynch, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Matt Lynch, co-founder and chief product officer.